All right, Thrive Nation, if you're out there listening today and you are a business owner or a landlord, or you know somebody who's a business owner or a landlord, and you are seeking emergency rescue capital to save your business and your real estate portfolio, today's show is the show for you. James, why is today's show so hot and vital?
Two amazing ways to get financing. First, for distressed landlords with multifamily properties.
Oh, yeah.
And the second, just for businesses generally, through Brett Denton.
Folks, here at the Thrive Time Show, we're 100% opposed to the lockdowns, the unconstitutional mandates, and the shutting of the American economy. But now we find ourselves all in the same boat, and many of you need access to that much-needed capital, that rescue capital right now. We have two guests on today's show that will provide you with access to the relief that you need financially to save your property and to save your business. All this and more on today's edition of the Thrive Time Show on your radio and podcast download.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! James, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. James D. Cristofaro, the attorney. How are you, sir?
All right. Best day of my life. How are you doing?
Hey, well, here's the deal. You moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma from Manhattan to escape the jackassery of the lockdowns.
The tyranny.
The tyranny and the unconstitutional mandates in Manhattan, the craziness in Manhattan. And when you left Manhattan, at that time, and I'm not trying to paint you into a corner, but
touching the canvas.
because you are an attorney who deals with small business owners.
Yeah, my office is still there.
How many businesses had gone out of business in Manhattan or in New York at the time you'd left?
You know, in July it was about, there's about 240,000 small businesses in New York City, and about 80,000 it was expected were going out of business or had gone out of business.
How many restaurants had been shuttered before you left?
Not as many as there are now. I mean, they're boarding up and all that. I would walk down the streets of Manhattan, and because of the lockdown and because of the riots, there'd be boarded up, graffiti all over the place, broken windows.
What have you heard or read about the vacancy in New York, where a tenant can no longer afford to pay their bills, so they flee the city and go live somewhere else?
Yeah, I look at the court filings every day, and
you look at that?
I look at that.
Oh,
yeah.
You do? Okay.
I do look at that, and landlords are filing lawsuits like crazy against individual tenants, against companies, against a bunch of their tenants.
So what's happening is businesses aren't allowed to be open.
Yeah.
So they can't pay the landlord.
Correct.
And the landlord probably
can't evict. There's an eviction moratorium, or there was. So
and the landlord then can't evict because of the moratorium on evictions. But the landlord, people don't understand this. The typical landlord has debt.
Yep.
And so they can't service their debt, so they can't pay the bank.
That's right.
And then I guess the next domino to fall would be the banks would fail. So right now we've got the small business owner failing. Then you've got the small business owners are failing. Then they can't pay the landlord, and the landlord can't pay the bank, and it's a domino effect. It's called communism.
There's another domino to that too.
What is
the domino is their employees, right? So they're like, I have a friend and a client of mine. He had a restaurant that employed 75 people before the lockdown. Now, after the lockdown, it's about 5. So now these 70 families can't pay their rent. They can't buy their, groceries at the grocery store, and that's a domino effect as well.
So what we're going to do on today's show is how to find the funding. Today's entire show is how to find the funding that businesses desperately need. And so on today's show, we have 2 guests on today's show. Guest number 1 is a listener who reached out to us, and she said, hey, I've got a 30-year history working in the real estate business, and I think I have a solution for some of the landlords who listen to your show. And then guest number 2, I reached out to guest number 2, our friend of the show, Brett Denton.
Yep.
And Brett Denton has teamed up with A10Capital to provide the Paycheck Protection program funding for small business owners. So on part 2 of today's show, we're going to get into the PPP funding, the Paycheck Protection Program funding that's available for small businesses. And on part 1 of the show, we're going to get into funding that may be available for landlords out there who are involved in commercial real estate. And so with that being said, Kathy Garrett, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you? Are you there, Kathy? Did we lose Kathy?
No, I'm here, Clay. I'm great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
So, Kathy, just so, again, I'm going to tell everybody out there, this is not a backhanded compliment against Kathy. I don't know Kathy. Kathy reached out to us and started telling me about her career. And I said, wow, this person seems very credible. So, if Kathy, if I ask you what seems to be rude questions, I'm doing it on behalf of the Thrive Nation, who doesn't want to be scammed or taken advantage of. So my first question for you, Kathy, is tell us about your career, so people can know that you are in fact legit.
Yes, of course. My entire career has basically been acquisition and management of multifamily assets. That's what I've done for 30 years. I believe that's my calling. I can look at a distressed asset and envision how to aesthetically improve it and then how to change the culture on the asset to turn it around to be a profitable income-producing asset, which increases the net operating income.
And is your company, is your website CHARISG.com? Is that you guys?
Well, that's our management company.
Yes.
But we're going to be talking about rescue investment.
Yeah.
And so that website is Garrett M LLC, and it's GARRETTM LLC.
Okay.
And we also have a 1-800 number, and it's 1-800-771 9676.
1-800-771 what?
9676.
Okay. And again, the website number 1, I know a lot of folks are taking notes on this, okay? Website number 1 you can check out where you can learn more about Kathy, our new friend here. Kathy, where do you call home, by the way? What state do you live in?
Dallas. I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas.
And you seem like a nice person. I looked you up, and I noticed that you do not appear to be a member of Antifa, which is always a bonus, right, James?
Yeah. Do you have electricity?
I do. I've had electricity all week.
Okay. All right. So
Great.
the website here, real quick, folks, again, the website is CHARISG.com. Now, that website is not for what we're talking about, but it's so you can verify that she is, in fact, a real person. You can see her headshot and everything there. It's CHARISG.com. And then the website that we're talking about right now is Garrett, GARRETTMLLC.com. And James, you know this. No matter how slow I say it, somebody reaches out and says, you didn't say it slow enough. Yeah, and you know what? And I apologize, folks. I'm going to say it again. The website is GARRETTMM, GARRETTM, as in Mary, LLC.com. And no matter how slow I say it, someone says you said it too much. You said it too much. Or how fast I say it. So I think I've said it there. Someone can replay it if they need to. Okay, so you have a 30-year history working with owning and managing multifamily assets. What size approximately?
The smallest asset I ever owned was 30 units. And the reason I bought that 30 units is because it was a mile from a 200-unit apartment community. So my maintenance technicians and my manager could easily go back and forth between the two assets. And if we didn't have a vacancy at the 200-unit asset, then they could refer them over to the 30-unit. And so both of those properties maintained about 99%, an average of 99% occupancy all the years I owned them. But the largest property I've owned is 300 units.
Wow.
But I've owned and managed thousands of units. I've been doing this for decades.
And so you, having been in the business for decades, what were you thinking when you heard about the lockdowns and then the moratorium that were being imposed on evictions?
Well, Clay, I was thinking that I did not want to acquire any multifamily assets at the moment. So in March of last year, I had an asset under contract that was going to close in April. And on March 10th, the NBA shut down along with the rest of the world. So I was grateful I didn't close on that asset because immediately, our unemployment went from like 2% to 14%. So just like you were saying a minute ago, how were my residents going to pay their rent? And then how was I, as the general partner, going to be able to pay the mortgage payment? And so I immediately started, thinking about my talents and my expertise and my energy and what I could do next. And so I came up with this rescue investment platform. And while I was thinking about this and vetting it and talking to a group of attorneys specialized in putting together partnerships, and I spoke with many high net worth individuals and to many people in the real estate community in Dallas. And I looked as much as I could and investigated my competitors. So I put together a rescue investment platform. So let's say, for example, you own 200 units. You can see that you're not going to be able to make your mortgage payment. So you come to Garrett LLC, and we will fund the 3 months of mortgage payments, and then you will start, and we will fund it as a investment with a preferred return. So for 3 months, you spend the money whatever way you like, paying bills, paying off liens, possibly hiring back some personnel you had laid off. And then in the 4th month, you'll start making a payment for the next 12 months on that preferred return.
Now, James, you're an attorney.
Yeah.
And you and I represent Team Conspiracy.
Okay.
Team We Believe Nobody.
Okay.
Team Skeptical.
Yeah.
Team, the world doesn't need another cynic, but we are another cynic. We are here, and we are here to judge.
Okay.
And we're here to ask rude questions.
All right.
So you ask your question, because somebody out there is going, that sounds too good to be true. Why would she be doing this? You ask your first question, then I'll ask my second. We'll go back and forth rapid fire. We'll paint her into a corner.
Okay. Ping pong.
With a kung fu grip.
Question ping pong.
Okay.
Kathy, the first question I have for you is, a couple days ago we celebrated the 2-week, 1 year, and what is it? The 1 year anniversary of the 15-day lockdown, right?
Yeah, we took 1 year. We're celebrating the 1 year anniversary of 1 year of 2 weeks to pause.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So now that we're 1 year into it, how 3 months is helpful, but is that really enough? And how does that work out? Because what happens in month 4 when they still can't pay their mortgage?
Well, let me back up for a minute. So at the same time I was thinking about this and processing it, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out with a forbearance program. And so if you had a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan debt on your apartment community, you could go to them and they would give you 3 months of forbearance on your monthly payments, and then you would start paying them on the 4th month. Well, our program, we try very hard, James and Clay, to be very creative and to be empathetic, to be honest with you. I have been in this same situation before, and so I gave this tremendous thought on every detail and discussed this so numerous times with my attorneys. The Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac forbearance programs are very stringent and they're difficult, and ours is not. And I'll just give you a few examples. One, if you default on the first or on your forbearance payment, they will foreclose on the property. Two, they sweep the cash flow every month out of the account and they use it at their discretion. 3, if you're in a so let's COVID hit in March. I think Fannie and Freddie came out with their forbearance programs maybe in July or August. So if you got into one of their forbearance programs, let's say in June, you could not evict a resident for any reason except for criminal activity. So we're not going to do that. Then the CDC and President Trump in September just poured out over America an eviction moratorium that the two of you were just talking about, which ends March 31st. So if they don't renew that will help tremendously with the current property owners. But if you are under a forbearance agreement with Fannie or Freddie, you still cannot evict a resident until that forbearance program is over. And then at that time, you must offer the residents that are behind on rent a payment plan and a payment plan that they can pay.
You know,
So
what you're saying makes sense. What I'm struggling with, James, is because we know there's listeners out there who are going, who is this person? Mm-hmm. So, Kathy, I want to go back to where we started just for a second. Where did you come from? Did you come from a real estate family? Did you start off working at 3 jobs? You saved a little bit of money. You read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Boom, you bought a portfolio. I mean, where did you come from?
I did read that book years ago.
Oh.
I was married and my daughter was 5. My husband died in a swimming accident. I did not attend college, and I went and got my real estate license. And so I started working for an entrepreneur here in Dallas and worked for a couple of different gentlemen. And then I ended up getting an excellent job with Wells Fargo as VP over their REO department. And that was a very difficult, stressful job.
Tell me what that means. When you, I know what that means, but our listeners don't know that. When you say you're head of this department, what does that abbreviation stand for?
Real estate owned. That meant the properties that they had foreclosed on.
Got it. Okay.
The worst of the worst.
Yeah. So you were in charge of that.
I was in charge of that, of getting those leased and sold.
Is that for the bank or local branch, or where was that?
I worked in Dallas, but I had properties over a 5-state area.
How old were you when you bought your first property, if you can remember?
Oh, yes. It was, so I started my real estate company in 1989, and I managed thousands of units for banks and for individuals, and I oversaw their rehabs. I helped them with their financing. I did it all. In 1999, I bought my first property.
And
so
how many properties have you owned approximately, do you think?
I've owned personally about 3,000 units.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say that I'm going to go on the record and say that it appears, although I'm skeptical, as though Kathy Garrett is approved. I mean, she
knows what she's talking about.
This woman hasn't probably had to do a job interview and probably 20 years, 30
in
years?
court, we would make a motion to qualify her as an expert. So if you're the judge, I'm going to move to qualify Kathy as an expert.
I feel like that we should continue the interview, though, where I should do that part of the interview where you ask somebody that super insincere question about what their biggest weakness is, and we go into that whole charade. No, but you're approved as an expert. Okay, so you're approved.
Thank you.
And so if people want to get involved right now with Rescue Capital, they want to reach out to you, they need to get the funding. What's your goal of Rescue Capital, and how do you benefit?
Well, our hope and our goal is that they will get their asset turned around within the first 3 months. We can be flexible. Each asset honestly is analyzed independendly, and so while we're analyzing these assets, we're looking for, in case this current property owner defaults, how much more money are we going to have to put into the asset to completely turn it around, increase the NOI, increase the value of the property for what they pay for it, and hopefully make a 2 to 3 times return on the initial investment. So our goal is that the current property owner can get the property turned around in 3 months.
Who should not reach out to you? Who's someone who should not reach out to you, and who do you believe should reach out to you?
Okay. in a perfect world, I love it when people call and they, as of March 1st, they had never been delinquent or in default on a mortgage payment. They did not have any current liens on their assets. They were not in any litigation with general partner to limited partner or any litigation, period. That's the ideal situation. We look at everything because I just looked at an asset very closely where they bought it in 2017, 2018, they did great. They made a lot of money. In my personal opinion, I didn't think they overpaid for it. Currently, a lot of people call me that have purchased assets in 2018 and 19, and they overpaid for it. But I look at the loan to value on each asset, and I don't get so concerned if it's not exactly what I want it to be because of the tremendous amount of growth of properties that are moving to Texas. And I look at all states, but to be honest, for the last 3 or 4 months, I've basically only looked at assets in Texas because I prefer to get in my car and drive there versus getting on an airplane because of COVID.
Now, I've met people that have bought properties and have been able to turn it around successfully. I've seen them do it in 3-4 months. I've seen it happen. So a guy I know pretty well bought multi-family units, apartments, James. He goes in there right away. His move is new carpet, new paint, period. Every one of them. New carpet, new paint, period. New carpet, new. That's his deal. And then he'll select certain ones. We got to fix the countertop, but boom, 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 boom. And man, his team is fast. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people that take months beyond that just to form a plan to turn it around, and then years to kind of. So I think what you're doing that's maybe different is you're reaching out to people that already hopefully have the fundamentals of a successful property, and they just need to now get more tenants. Maybe is that kind of or
yeah, they need to get more paying tenants. I'm also very appreciative if someone contacts us and I can see that they have invested funds. So I can see that, yes, they have 300 units and they had updated 100 of them pre-COVID. So they were moving in the right direction. They weren't an absentee owner. They were paying attention to their monthly reports and staying in contact with their management company. Yes. So when we look at an asset, I look at everything. It's almost as if we're purchasing it because we need to know if we're going to make 3 monthly payments. And just for example, we're going to invest $300,000. My partners, my investors want to know, Kathy, what do you think is the highest amount of money that we will ever invest in this property?
Now, I feel like, I hate to cut you off there, sorry about that. I feel like there's somebody out there that says, okay, what are the steps? James, there's a certain desperation that people are experiencing who've saved money for years. And through no fault of their own, there's lockdowns. So all of their renters, people that were previously working at a restaurant, they can't go to work because they lost their job. Mm-hmm. Or the guy who owns the restaurant can't make money because the restaurant's closed. And now he can't pay rent. It's just the domino effect. So there's a lot of people that have been saving money for years. I mean, they don't just sell multi-units to anybody. You got to have some serious net worth. You got to develop the habit of saving. You have to be a diligent person. You've probably read Rich Dad, Poor Dad 7 times. And it can be a humbling experience when all of a sudden you can't pay your bills. So if somebody wants to get started with you, how can they learn more? Where do they go? What are the next steps?
Well, this is what happens. This is the most common problem is, let's say you and James own a property and you can see that you're not going to be able to make your March payment. Well, first of all, you call every one of your partners for a capital call. Well, they don't have the money for various reasons. And then you think, James says, you know what, my brother-in-law's got an extra $200,000. We'll borrow it from him and pay an interest rate. Well, the brother-in-law just happened not to have the money or for whatever reason didn't want to lend it. So people will literally call me on February 15th and need the money for March 1st or need the money by March 10th when they're going to have to pay a late fee. So the earlier someone will call me or if they'll go to the website, sign the NDA and fill out a very short form, which gives us so much information. They're automatically emailed to our team, and we can review them. That is the quickest way to do it.
Why do they have to sign an NDA?
Because I'm going to be discussing terms with them that I don't want the market to know. I don't want a competitor to know what my terms are.
James?
When we, Clay and James, when we invest money in these assets, we invest it as a preferred return. We invest capital as a preferred return. It is not a loan. You cannot get a second on these properties.
James,
so
it sounds like with the tone of her voice, looking up her photo, looking up her website, looking up her management company, folks. Again, her management company here. It's called is it called the Charis Group? Charis Group?
It's called the Charis Group,
Charis
and it means
Group.
grace. Charis means grace. I had a real estate company for 23 years named Brookfagan Real Estate. I took a short break from that, and then I started back in late 2018 acquiring properties, and I started the Charis Group.
And the Charis Group, that is think about this, folks. Over 10,000 units have been acquired, managed, and repositioned or sold at the Charis Group. Over 400 staff members have been hired, mentored, and equipped. Over 1,870. It says days to realize our vision of 5,000 additional units owned by 2025. So I guess you're 1,870 days away from realizing your vision of 5,000 additional units owned by 2025. There's a lot of stats there, James.
Yeah.
Seems pretty legit. I don't know.
COVID destroyed our vision.
Well, I can't. It's okay. I can't prove that you're not a member of Antifa. I mean, James, can we prove that? No, we can't.
No.
So, folks out there, move forward at your own risk. You know what I mean? Don't. I'm not saying that I endorse Kathy, Special K, as they call her, on the streets. I'm not saying that we don't endorse her, that we do endorse her. I'm saying you need to do your research, and I encourage you, if you need capital, there is hope.
That's an opportunity.
There's an opportunity with Kathy and other opportunities, but I encourage you to go to www.GarrettMLLC.com. That's GarrettMLLC.com. James, can I get a G?
G.
Can I get an A?
A.
Can I get an R?
R.
Can I get another R?
R.
Can I get an E?
E.
Can I get a T?
T.
Can I get a T?
T.
Can I get an M?
M.
Can I get an L?
L.
Can I get another L?
L.
Can I get a C?
C.
Can I get a dot?
Dot.
Can I get a C?
C.
Can I get an O?
O.
Can I get an M?
M. What does that spell?
GarrettMLLC.com. GarrettMLLC.com. Kathy Garrett, thank you for participating in probably the least intelligent interview of your career. I appreciate you lowering your standards to be on today's show, and I really do appreciate everything you're doing for everybody out there. And, folks, if you want to call, there's a phone number you can call. And, James, get ready for the pop quiz.
Yep.
The number you can call is 1-800-771-9676. That's 1-800-771-9676. Okay, one more time. 1-800-771-9676. James, if you add it up, 1-800-771-9676. What's that spell?
What does that spell? That spells GarrettMLLC.com.
There we go, folks. Check it out. Kathy Garrett, thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, Clay, let me just say one thing to your audience that Winston Churchill said. It's encouraging. Success is not final, and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So there's hope. In adversity, there's always hope, and there's always opportunities. So thank you both, James and Clay, for your time, and I appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch.
Take care, boss.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Thrive Nation, this is a time in American history where many people, for the first time, are finding it impossible to grow a successful company because you're not allowed to be open. Again, it's really hard to attract people to come work out at your gym, your personal training facility, if you're not allowed to be opened due to unconstitutional mandates. And so the government has made this thing called the Paycheck Protection Program available. And whether I agree with it or not, philosophically, many of you have reached out to me asking me, Clay, how can I gain access to the Paycheck Protection Program funding? What are the steps that I need to take to gain access to the Paycheck Protection Program? How does the Paycheck Protection Program work? Who qualifies? Who doesn't? What do I need to do to gain access to this life-saving capital for my business? And so I thought I would bring on a longtime friend of mine, longtime client, based in Boise, Idaho, Brett Denton, the founder of CavellFit.com. He's the founder of a gym. It's like a group training, personal training fitness center. And now he finds himself teaming up with a company called A10Capital to help great people like you to gain access to the Paycheck Protection Program. Brett Denton, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to help out.
Brett, for a lot of our listeners out there that don't know you and your background, I mean, you're in the boat with the listeners. I mean, this isn't. You're not on the sidelines. You're not on the shore talking about other people in a boat having problems. I mean, you're in the boat and you're right in the thick of things. What kind of lockdowns and shutdowns have you experienced this year in Boise, Idaho, and how has that impacted your company, CavellFit.com?
Yeah, so with our gym, we were locked out for about 8 weeks, and obviously as a gym, obviously hard to function, hard to make money as a gym. Luckily, we have amazing clients who stuck with us, but people can only stick with you for so long until they're like, hey, what am I actually paying for? And then they start to drift, right? So we've lost over 50% of our business since the shutdown started.
Wow! And are you married, Brett?
I am married, yes.
And does your wife, is she from a long line of money tree farmers, people that can just grow money? Can you turn to your wife and say, can you pluck some money off the tree?
Yeah, I wish. That's I wouldn't say I married wrong, but I didn't marry a money tree.
By the way, your wife, from what we know, is a great American, and so I'm sure you've had discussions though around the dinner table. And I'm not looking to get too intimate in the details, but I'm sure you've had discussions like, man, if our gym isn't open, we probably will be closed. Have you had that discussion?
Yeah, we've had that discussion many times, right? So, long story short, we have had to close. We had a second gym. We're in the process of opening a third gym. I have shut down the second gym. I have shut down the third gym. We are now down to one actual physical location.
And emotionally, how have you been able to process that? Because you're I would consider you as kind of like a stoic guy. We all have times where we might freak out, but I mean, you've always been a pretty consistent guy, kind of a cool cucumber. How have you been able to process knowing that it would be so easy to grow your gym if you were allowed to be open, but you're not allowed to be open?
Well, I think just like many of the listeners, Clay, the biggest issue here is just the frustration of not really having anything that I can do that's going to change anything. Sure, I can change business models, I can change what I'm doing, those are all great things, and we've done those things. But when it comes to the actual physical gym, we can't do anything for the psychology of what has happened, right? So we can't do anything for the people that are scared from what the media and the government has been telling them. We can't do anything when we have mandated shutdowns, except for, of course, break the law, which, most people are law-abiding citizens, so they're not going to do that. And so I think the biggest frustration from an emotional standpoint is that, right? Like the hands are tied, and for somebody like me and most business owners, most of your listeners, they're go-getters, they're doers, so if something comes up, they're going to do something to fix it. Well, in a circumstance like this, when we can't do that, it's very frustrating. It causes a lot of angst.
So, you luckily, whenever you train your clients, you build good relationships. I mean, you guys at Cavell Fit, pre-COVID, I mean, you get people in great shape. You get to know these people. You build bonds. You build relationships that last a lifetime. And you've connected with a lot of people in the Boise community. And my understanding is that you connected with a gentleman who owns a company called A10Capital. Tell us how you met, how you teamed up with A10Capital, and what your current role is to help provide access to the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yeah, so A10Capital is a lender. We're not a bank, so you don't have to have accounts with us. And the way that I teamed up with A10 was when this whole thing hit. I had a buddy who happens to be one of the executives over there, and he said, "Listen, we need help originating loans for everybody across America who's struggling." So I know your business is shut down at the moment, so why don't you come over here and help us originate loans? So that's what I did. And so A10 jumped into the originating of these PPP loans. Generally what they do is actually very complex bridge loans for people. But we have been all hands on board for the PPP program.
And so let's talk about this. So if people reach out today, first off, how do they gain access? If people want to reach out right now and see if they qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just shoot me a text, and then I'll ask you questions to see if you qualify. So the text is 208-991-6537. Again, that's my direct cell, so it's going to come directly to me. Again, 208-991-6537. And I'll just say PPP, and I'm just going to ask you a series of questions to make sure you qualify. And if you do, then I'm going to email you the link to apply.
Okay, so again, folks, you want to text the number 208-991-6537. That's 208-991-6537. When the listeners text the information, you're going to see if they qualify. But just so we don't waste your time or any of the listeners' time, their time, who qualifies and how does the program work?
Yeah, so real quick, there's some quick questions that I'm going to ask. So number one, are you in business? If you're no longer in business, unfortunately, the SBA says, well, you have nothing to spend money on, so you don't qualify. Number two, do you have W-2 employees? If you have W-2 employees and you're in business, then we can likely get you qualified. If you're a sole proprietor, you don't have W-2 employees, you have to have claimed a positive net profit on your Schedule C line 31. So again, Schedule C line 31 as a sole proprietor has to have a positive number on there for you to qualify. Those are kind of the main qualifications, and then we'll go down the question train after that. But if you have those things, then we can probably get you qualified for some money.
Okay, so again, people need to text the number 208-991-6537, 208-991-6537. And how much money do our listeners qualify for? I mean, let's just say you have a business that's a restaurant or a fitness center or some kind of business that's been negatively impacted by the shutdowns, especially for a lot of these non-essential businesses. And by the way, I disagree with the idea of non-essential businesses. By the way, if you're out there listening, I could not disagree more with the idea that any business is non-essential. That violates your First Amendment rights in so many ways. But how much money do people qualify for?
Yeah, so the way that it's set up, again, it gets a little complex with the calculations, but the easiest way is it's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And so for some quick math, let's say you own a restaurant. The restaurants are a little different for the second round, but let's just say first draw and second draw, they're two different things. But let's just say you're a restaurant. You have $10,000 in monthly payroll. You multiply that by 2.5, and that's going to be what your loan amount's going to be for first draw. For second draw, restaurants get it for 3.5 times their average monthly payroll. Now, the restaurants are different, so most businesses out there, you're going to get 2.5 times your average monthly payroll.
Now, so 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. Other questions, Brett, and Brett. I'm sorry if I'm going over the boundary, but I'm going to do it. What's in it for you? I mean, I've known you for a long time. We're getting, closer to if you round it up, we're getting closer to a decade here, Brett. I mean, I've known you for years. You've always done the right thing by your clients. You're a guy that I trust. But for the listeners out there who are saying, well, so what's in it for you? How's this guy making money? What's he doing? Is he trying to, so how do you make any money?
Yeah, and that's a fair question because there's scams out there these days. So the way that this works is we originate the loans, and if you want to look at it this way, we are essentially doing the work for the government. So with the PPP program, lenders do the work for the government by originating the loans and doing the forgiveness of the loans, and then the government pays us for those loans once they're forgiven. So we get paid from the government for originating loans for businesses.
So it could be said that you're a top secret government agent.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay, let me ask you this, Brett. I mean this, Brett. I'm just throwing it out there. I know a guy named Sneaks who has said that if people want to get the PPP, they need to go to the back of the restaurant in the alley and they need to knock on the door twice. He's going to reach out. He's going to hand them a brown bag filled with cash. It sounds shady. It is shady. It's not something our listeners should do. How do we know that this is not a Ponzi scheme, a get-rich-quick scheme, a scamockery, a program based upon a house of cards, that you're not trying to screw our listeners? Because we've all the listeners out there have been screwed this year, Brett. People can't trust anybody. How do they know they can trust you?
Yeah, so there's a few things that you can do, but number one, I would just say, hey, go to the A10Capital.com website, A10Capital.com. Make sure that you understand everything on there. And then, again, get a hold of me. Talk to me on the phone. I'll talk to you on the phone. I'll make sure that you understand how the entire process works. We've funded thousands and thousands of these at this point. And again, banks doing them, lenders are doing them. We have everything that you need from the application to the proof on the website to a real human to talk to, which again, I think is what people are running into on these PPP programs when they're dealing with the bigger banks, is they can't actually get a hold of anybody to talk to. They're confused on what documents. They're confused on how to calculate it. And so that's why we're here. You got a real human. I'm going to help you through the process.
Now, what are the most common, most frequently asked questions that the listeners ask? Because people will I know we're having hundreds of people texting you right now to 208-991-6537, 208-991-6537. What are the most frequently asked questions that you get?
Yeah, the most frequent is probably how do I calculate my monthly payroll? And this is especially true for sole proprietors. So sole proprietors, again, the way you're going to calculate it, if you're an LLC or just a straight sole proprietor contractor, you're going to look at line 31 of your Schedule C. Line 31 of your Schedule C, you're going to divide that number by 12 and multiply by 2.5, and that's going to give you your loan amount. If you're not a sole proprietor or an LLC and you have employees, then you're just going to take your 941s or your W-3. You're going to get all that together, and that's going to have the number for your payroll, and then you can add the Schedule C line 31 to it, and then again, same math, divide by 12, multiply by 2.5. So that's one of the main questions. If those numbers aren't positive, you're not going to be able to get a loan. The other question, again, is, do I qualify if I'm not currently in business? The answer is no. You have to be in business. So if COVID puts you out of business, I know it's a crappy deal, but unfortunately, the SBA says that you don't qualify. Those are kind of the two main things that we have keep coming up.
Brett, first off, man, I appreciate your attitude. You've stayed so positive this year through the lockdowns, the shutdowns. I think you really have been a great role model for so many listeners out there that are looking for ways to stay positive. Is there a thought process that you have that you've been able to have throughout the year, kind of a steadying thought process? Do you have sort of a mindset you could share for anybody? Because you are on a scale of 1 to 10. I bet you are a 10 or 11 in your frustration level, if 10 is the highest. I bet you have been very frustrated this year because your business was rocking. Things were going great at Cavell, and all of a sudden, for no reason, no fault of your own, you've been forced to be shut down. Do you have any encouragement for the listeners out there?
Yeah, the mantra that I use, and it may be cliche, is control what you can control and then forget about the rest, because that's all we can do. We can control what we can control, and the rest is going to happen however it's going to happen. And so if you put that mindset on, you get to work, you stay busy, you don't just sit there and drown in your misery. We're going to make it through this one way or the other, and so we might as well stay in action, stay in motion, and do what we can do.
And kind of my mantra, I've just said, God wasn't surprised by this. If you're a Christian out there, you're a believer, you have faith, you have to believe if God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, he wasn't surprised by these events. And if maybe you say that doesn't help you, okay, fine. Winston Churchill. Think about Winston Churchill, guys. He was the prime minister. He was the man leading Britain as they were being mercilessly bombed by the Germans with no help in sight from the Americans. And he told his people, be calm and carry on. Stay calm and carry on. But he had a famous quote he said, if you're going through hell, don't stop. Think about that. You don't want to get stuck. If you're going through hell, don't stop. And so, Brett, I appreciate you being a great example. I appreciate you helping our listeners out there. And again, folks, if you're looking for that Paycheck Protection Program funding, text the number 208-991-6537, 208-991-6537. And a final question for you, Brett, then I'll let you get back to doing what you're doing. Is this technically Paycheck Protection Round 2, Paycheck Protection Round 3? I'm just saying that because some of our listeners listen to the different shows at different times, And some people think, oh, well, I may have already applied. Well, you might have already applied to Paycheck Protection Round 1, or maybe you haven't. So what round of Paycheck Protection funding is this?
Yeah, it's very confusing. So there's actually rounds and there's draws. So the first round is over, and that was the first round that we had, many months ago. That was the first round and the first draw. Okay, now we're in round 2, and you're going to get the first draw or the second draw. So if you didn't get a first draw in round 1, you will first have to get the first draw in round 2 before we can apply for the second draw in round 2.
Got it. Well, Brett, I appreciate you, my friend. You're a great American, a great friend, a wonderful entrepreneur, and I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Clay.
Take care. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1.